Hello everyone, welcome back to Biomystery Media. Find a comfortable place to sit. Take a slow breath and let the story begin. Imagine a little girl. She is 2 years old. She does not understand what is happening around her. She does not understand why the people in the palace are so quiet. She does not understand why her mother has not come to see her. She will never see her mother again, because her mother is dead. Executed. Executed means killed as an official punishment, especially by a government or ruler. By her own father, the King of England. This little girl's name is Elizabeth, and the world she has been born into has already decided that she is illegitimate. Illegitimate means not recognized as legal or official, in this case meaning not a true heir to the throne. Worthless. Unwanted. A girl in a world that wanted a boy. And yet, this unwanted little girl, this daughter of a condemned means officially judged to be guilty and sentenced to death. Mother. Would one day become the most powerful monarch. A monarch is a king or queen who rules a country. In English history. Would defeat the greatest naval force in the world. Would reign. To reign means to rule as a king or queen for 45 years, and would never, not once, allow any man to take her power away. This is the story of Elizabeth I, the girl who was never supposed to be queen, and the woman who became England's greatest ruler. Welcome to Biomystery Media, real history, real stories, told in clear, natural English. Whether you love history or you are building your English, this is your place. Take a comfortable breath, and let us begin. The story begins at Greenwich Palace, September 7th, 1533. A baby girl is born. Her name is Elizabeth. Her father is King Henry VIII of England, one of the most powerful and terrifying rulers in European history. Her mother is Anne Boleyn. The woman Henry had moved mountains. To move mountains means to do something extremely difficult or seemingly impossible. To marry. The woman for whom Henry had broken with the Catholic Church, created a new Church of England, destroyed his first marriage of 20 years. All for this woman. All for Anne Boleyn. Elizabeth was born on September 7, 1533 at Greenwich Palace, the daughter of King Henry VIII and his second wife, Anne Boleyn. But Henry had wanted a son. He had done all of this. The scandal, the religious revolution, the broken marriages, for a son. And Anne had given him a daughter. The court fell silent when the news was announced. The celebrations that had been planned, cancelled. The letters announcing the birth of a prince, hastily rewritten. Elizabeth arrived into a world that was already disappointed by her existence. She would not remember what happened next. She was not yet 3 years old. But it would shape every decision she made for the rest of her life. On the 19th of May, 1536, Anne Boleyn, Henry VIII's second wife and mother of the future Elizabeth I, was beheaded in the Tower of London, having been found guilty of adultery and treason. Although found unanimously guilty, the evidence against her was questionable. Only one person accused of an affair with Anne admitted his guilt, and this was allegedly extracted under torture. Anne Boleyn was buried as a traitor. A traitor is a person who betrays their country or ruler, in an unmarked grave. Inside the Tower of London, the same tower where her daughter would one day be imprisoned. It is impossible to know what Elizabeth thought or felt about the fact that her father had executed her mother. It is entirely possible, given that she was not yet 3 when her mother died, that she had no real memory of Anne at all. But it is hard to conceive that such a family history would not be the cause of at least a little emotional unquiet. Emotional unquiet. What a phrase. A mother executed, a father who ordered it, a little girl left behind. Historians believe Elizabeth was traumatized. Traumatized means deeply and lastingly affected by a terrible experience, by the events of her childhood during which her mother and one of her stepmothers were executed and two of her stepmothers died in childbirth. She grew up in the shadow. In the shadow of something means overshadowed by it, affected by its presence, of that execution, and she never forgot it. After her mother's death, everything changed for Elizabeth. Her father declared her illegitimate. She was removed from the line of succession. The succession means the order in which people will inherit a position or title. She was no longer a princess in the eyes of the law. She was nobody. Henry moved on. He married again and again. 6 wives in total, 2 of them executed, 2 of them divorced. 1 died giving birth, 1 outlived him. Elizabeth watched all of this from a distance, learning, observing. To observe means to watch carefully and pay attention to what is happening. Understanding from a very young age that power was dangerous, that being too close to power could get you killed, and that the only way to survive was to be very, very careful. Despite facing challenges to her legitimacy, Elizabeth became the best educated woman of her generation. She was brilliant, exceptionally. Exceptionally means to an unusually high degree, far above normal. Brilliant. She spoke 6 languages: Latin, Greek, French, Italian, Spanish, and English. She studied history, philosophy, mathematics, and theology. Theology means the study of religion and the nature of God. Her tutors described her as having an extraordinary means very unusual and impressive, far beyond what is normal. Mind. But brilliant minds in Tudor England. Tudor refers to the royal dynasty that ruled England from 1485 to 1603. Were not safe, especially not in a royal family. Especially not a girl with a complicated claim to the throne. Elizabeth was 20 years old when the worst moment of her young life arrived. Her half-brother Edward had died. Her half-sister Mary, a devout means deeply and sincerely religious, Catholic who despised. To despise means to feel a strong dislike and contempt for something or someone. Elizabeth's Protestant faith had taken the throne. Mary I. History would call her Bloody Mary. For the nearly 300 Protestants she burned alive during her reign. Elizabeth was imprisoned in the Tower of London and held under house arrest at Hampton Court Palace on suspicion of plotting against Mary. This was a Tudor dynasty at war with itself. The Tower of London, the same place where her mother had been beheaded, the same stone walls, the same cold river air, the same silence that meant only one thing. Elizabeth sat in that tower for 2 months, waiting, not knowing if she would walk out alive. In 1554, Elizabeth was released from the tower to house arrest at Woodstock. She had been held for weeks despite no evidence to implicate her in the recent rebellion to overthrow Mary. The date chosen for her release was probably deliberate. It was the 19th of May, the 18th anniversary of her mother's execution at the tower. The 18th anniversary of her mother's execution. Released on that exact date. A message from Mary. You are alive only because I allow it. Elizabeth understood. She had always understood. Survival. Survival means the act of continuing to live despite very difficult or dangerous circumstances was not guaranteed. Guaranteed means certain, assured beyond doubt. For anyone in the Tudor court, not even for a princess. And so she waited. Quietly, carefully, patiently. Mary I died on November 17, 1558. She had no children, no heir. And Elizabeth, the illegitimate daughter of a condemned traitor, became Queen of England. She was 25 years old. Elizabeth became queen aged 25 at a time of political crisis. Her path to the throne was by no means smooth. Her mother, Anne Boleyn, was, after all, a condemned traitor. The men around her expected her to fail. They expected her to marry quickly, to hand her power to a husband, to do what women were expected to do in the 16th century. She did none of those things. Elizabeth I was coronated. Coronated means officially crowned as monarch in a formal ceremony, on January 15, 1559, at Westminster Abbey. She walked into that ceremony knowing exactly what she was: the daughter of a woman buried in an unmarked grave as a traitor, standing in the place her mother never reached. And she had already decided something that would define. To define means to determine the essential nature or meaning of something, her entire reign. She would never give any man the power to destroy her, the way her father had destroyed her mother. Never. Her advisors wanted her to marry immediately. Every king in Europe sent proposals. Philip II of Spain, Archduke Charles of Austria, Prince Eric of Sweden, the Duke of Anjou. Elizabeth entertained them all, flirted. To flirt means to behave as though romantically interested in someone without serious intention. With them, negotiated with them, used the possibility of marriage as a powerful political tool, and married none of them. But there was one man she truly loved. His name was Robert Dudley. Robert Dudley was one of Elizabeth's favorites, a long-term suitor and believed by many to have been her one true love. Elizabeth's fondness for Dudley and his proximity to her made him influential and envied. She called Dudley her eyes and sweet Robin. They had known each other since childhood. They had both been imprisoned in the Tower at different times. They understood each other in a way that no foreign king ever could. But there was a problem. Dudley was already married, and then, in 1560, his wife Amy died, found at the bottom of a staircase, neck broken. His wife died in suspicious circumstances in 1560. Murder? Accident? Suicide? Nobody knew for certain. Nobody ever found out. But a rumor is information spread among people that may not be true. Spread immediately. Dudley had killed his wife to be free to marry the Queen. Elizabeth could not marry him now. To marry a man suspected of murdering his wife would destroy her reputation. Reputation means the general opinion that people have about someone. Completely. And reputation was everything to Elizabeth. So she kept him close. Her most beloved companion. A companion is a person with whom one spends time or travels for the rest of his life. The man she could never marry. The man she never stopped loving. After Robert Dudley's death, the Queen kept his last letter to her in a treasure box by her bedside, where it remained until her own death 15 years later. His last letter, in a box beside her bed for 15 years, until the day she died. Key vocabulary: unrequited. Unrequited means not returned or rewarded. Unrequited love means loving someone who cannot or does not love you back in the same way. Elizabeth's love for Dudley was not unrequited, but it was impossible. An impossible love. Impossible love means a love that cannot be fulfilled due to circumstances beyond a person's control, is sometimes the most powerful kind of all. In 1562, just 4 years into her reign, Elizabeth almost died, not from an assassin's blade, not from political conspiracy. Conspiracy means a secret plan made by a group of people to do something harmful or illegal. From smallpox. Smallpox was a deadly infectious disease that caused severe skin rashes and fever, now eradicated worldwide. Elizabeth almost died from smallpox in 1562. A discovery that would have greatly benefited her was the first documented smallpox vaccination by Dr. Edward Jenner. But that was centuries away. She was gravely means very seriously in a way that causes great concern, ill. For days, nobody knew if she would survive. The court panicked. To panic means to suddenly feel extreme fear or anxiety. If Elizabeth died, who would rule England? She had no heir, no named successor. A successor is the person who takes over a role or position after someone else. England would fall into chaos. Chaos means a state of complete disorder and confusion. Elizabeth survived, but the smallpox left marks on her face. Scars. Scars are marks left on skin after a wound has healed, that never fully disappeared. From that point forward, Elizabeth began painting her face, a thick white paste made from white lead and vinegar but applied every morning. To hide the scars, to present to the world the perfect, flawless image of a queen. Key phrase: keeping up appearances. Keeping up appearances means maintaining an image of success or normality even when the reality is different. Elizabeth I was a master at keeping up appearances. The mask she painted on her face every morning was not just cosmetic. Cosmetic means relating to the appearance of the face or body. It was armor. Armor means a protective covering, either physical or metaphorical. For decades, enemies circled Elizabeth. Catholic powers in Europe who did not recognize her as the legitimate. Legitimate means conforming to the law or to established rules, rightful Queen of England. Conspirators at home who plotted to replace her with her Catholic cousin, Mary, Queen of Scots. Mary was everything Elizabeth was not. She had been married. She had a son. She had the support of Catholic Europe. And she had a claim. A claim is a statement that something is true or that you have a right to something. To the English throne. For years, Elizabeth imprisoned Mary. For nearly 20 years, Mary sat in various English castles. A prisoner. A rival. A rival is a person competing with another for the same objective or for superiority in the same field. A constant threat. After being tried and convicted of plotting the death of Queen Elizabeth, Mary Stuart was beheaded at Fotheringhay Castle in 1587. Elizabeth had hesitated. To hesitate means to pause before doing something, especially out of uncertainty or reluctance, for years before signing Mary's death warrant. A death warrant is an official order for someone to be executed. She understood what it meant. A queen ordering the execution of another queen, a cousin ordering the death of a cousin. She had lived her whole life in the shadow of her mother's execution, and now she was the one holding the pen. She signed it. Mary, Queen of Scots, was executed on February 8, 1587. Elizabeth wept. To weep means to cry, to shed tears, when she heard it was done, whether from genuine grief or from the weight of what she had become. No one knows for certain. The execution of Mary, Queen of Scots, enraged. Enraged means made extremely angry. Catholic Europe and King Philip II of Spain decided the time had come. He would invade England. He would destroy Elizabeth. He would return England to the Catholic faith. He assembled. To assemble means to gather together in one place. The most powerful naval fleet. A fleet is a group of ships or aircraft operating together. The world had ever seen. 130 ships, 30,000 men, the Spanish Armada. In 1588, the Spanish Armada, sent by Philip II of Spain, attempted to invade England. Against the odds, the English Navy, aided by bad weather and strategic brilliance, defeated the Armada, securing Elizabeth's reputation as a defender of Protestant England. As the Armada approached, Elizabeth did something extraordinary. She rode on horseback to Tilbury, where her troops were gathered, to speak to them directly. A queen, in armor, on a horse, standing before thousands of soldiers. At Tilbury, Elizabeth gave her famous speech declaring, I know I have the body but of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king. The heart and stomach of a king. The daughter of Anne Boleyn. The girl declared illegitimate at the age of 2. The princess imprisoned in the Tower, standing before an army, daring the most powerful empire in the world to try to take her kingdom. The Armada was defeated. Storms battered the Spanish ships. The English navy fought brilliantly. 130 ships became scattered wreckage. Wreckage means the remains of something that has been badly damaged or destroyed across the North Sea. England was safe. Elizabeth was victorious. Victorious means having achieved a victory, having won, and her legend was complete. Victory over the Armada was the highest point of Elizabeth's reign. But time is merciless. Merciless means showing no mercy or pity, cruel and harsh, even to queens. The people she loved most began to leave her. Robert Dudley died suddenly at his home in 1588, not long after the defeat of the Armada. His death deeply affected Elizabeth, the man who had kept her last letter beside her bed. Gone. Her great advisor, William Cecil, died in 1598. Her court grew old around her. The brilliant young men who had filled her palace with life and energy, aged, retired, died. Elizabeth's final years were marked by melancholy. Melancholy means a feeling of deep sadness that lasts for a long time, and physical decline. After the deaths of close friends and advisors, she became increasingly reclusive. Reclusive means avoiding contact with other people, preferring to be alone. She refused to look in mirrors in her final years. She could not bear. To bear means to endure something painful or difficult, to see what time had done to her face. The scars beneath the white paint, the woman behind the mask. In the winter of 1603, Elizabeth fell ill. She sat in a chair for days, refusing to eat, refusing to go to bed, refusing, as she had refused everything her entire life that she did not choose, to be moved. On March 24, 1603, Queen Elizabeth I passed away at her palace at Richmond. She had not yet named an heir to the English throne. Historians believe this was deliberate, a means of protecting her position even at the risk of causing a civil war over the succession. She died as she had lived, on her own terms, telling nobody what came next, giving power to no one until she had no choice. She was 69 years old. She had reigned for 45 years. Elizabeth I was not a perfect queen. She could be vain. Vain means having an excessively high opinion of one's own appearance or abilities. She could be cruel. She could be indecisive. Indecisive means not able to make decisions quickly or effectively, at moments when decisiveness was needed. She executed people she loved. She sacrificed personal happiness for political power. But she was also extraordinary, in a world that told women they were the weaker vessel. A vessel here means a container, an old expression used to describe women as inferior to men. She refused to be contained. In a world that expected her to marry and surrender. To surrender means to give up control or power to another person. Her authority, she surrendered nothing. In a world that had executed her mother for failing to produce a male heir, she proved that a woman needed no heir to be great. She needed only herself. As the historian William Camden wrote soon after her death, "No oblivion shall ever bury the glory of her name." No oblivion. Oblivion means the state of being completely forgotten. Shall ever bury the glory of her name. The girl who was never supposed to be queen became the queen nobody ever forgot. 5 key words from today's story. Illegitimate, not recognized as lawful or official. Elizabeth was declared illegitimate after her mother's execution, traumatized, deeply and lastingly affected by a terrible experience. Historians believe Elizabeth was traumatized by her mother's death, reclusive, avoiding contact with other people, preferring to be alone. In her final years, Elizabeth became increasingly reclusive, unrequited, not returned or rewarded. Elizabeth's love for Dudley was not unrequited, but it was impossible. Oblivion, the state of being completely forgotten. No oblivion shall ever bury the glory of her name. If today's story moved you, if you saw Elizabeth I differently by the end, leave a comment and tell me which moment stayed with you most. Was it the little girl whose mother was executed before she was 3? The woman who kept her lover's last letter beside her bed for 15 years? Or the queen who stood before an army and declared she had the heart of a king? Subscribe to Bio Mystery Media. Every week we tell the real story, the full story, the human story behind the legend. In clear natural English for history lovers and B1 and B2 English learners everywhere.